it's more holistic in a way of you know, having the music also stand with the lyrics together.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned movies. From listening to this album, it sounds like something that could be film score. Is that something that you would think about doing?
I think it would be very interesting and challenging as well. I think what I like about, you know, doing this as a band is that we can kind of set our own deadlines and our own pace in how we do things and what we want to do. I think the biggest challenge for you know, doing film scores or whatever is that usually it's just so limited on time and schedules and everything, and so they just have to work on, like, you have 2 weeks and then you just have to sort of do what you can, and I'm really bad at that. You know, it would really help me to kind of have to work.
Can't be helped, mate. Can't be
projects
helped.
with a very strict deadline, because I tend to blow things up by just not being maybe 100% satisfied or something, and then just saying, like, you know, we reach that and we reach that, just to make it better come together. And in the end, you know, I don't know, sometimes in many things probably like only 2% could tell the difference between the 1 month version and the 9 month version or whatever. But it's something, you know, you yourself, you know, need to be satisfied with something that, you know, I'll keep working on something for as long as it takes to be happy with it. And sometimes that's a good thing. It makes you sort of push the barrier pretty high, but sometimes it's also can be sort of a bit of a, you know, a hinder in the way of you know, you could kind of achieve 99% of the same in what, 20% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You've probably covered some of this a little bit, but I read that how you have to take in really big bold steps to create music that's different to everything else that's around, as well as what you said about the historical influences. Where else do you get your inspiration from?
I don't really listen to a lot of music at all, mainly because I'm sort of surrounded by it all the time, and I think it's more just sort of I get inspired by anything, whether it's a movie or a sort of trip to Tate Modern or whatever, and just sort of being fascinated by something. It doesn't even mean that I need to understand what it's about. Sometimes that's actually the best sort of inspiration of just being sort of fascinated about an art movie or something that's just, you can't even understand what it's really about or what it's trying to tell you, but it's just sort of visually so striking, or there's something about it that's, you know, very interesting, or I guess. And in many ways, that's sort of then what you try to do yourself is to find a way of making music that's maybe not always going by the most obvious choices, but trying to also kind of like look a bit to the sides and see if you can find some melodies that are maybe a bit more quirky and interesting or something, and then just make it somehow sound more normal. I don't know, but it's just all sorts of things really, and it's not. It's more than just getting excited. It might be just some random. I can't just think of any good example right now. But
Okay. I think the idea of the Tag Yourself competition that you've done on your official Facebook page is great. What was the reason behind doing that?
Well, we realized that, you know, these are our shows, so we can of course invite any guests to our shows that we want to, and you know, Facebook fans are, you know, some of them are more active, some of them aren't, and that's fine, but it's cool to be able to, you know, give something back to the fans, and those who follow you on Facebook, those who sort of take part in that actively, you know, that they actually have some sort of, it makes sense to follow the band on Facebook, to sort of like throw out competitions and put together things that, you know, that they can get excited about, and you know, I guess it's been all the more sort of directing that thing for us. But we met some really happy people who came down to the show, and you know, of course a lot of them would buy the ticket anyway, so it's not really like that, but it's still cool. Like in Dublin the other night, the guests could be up on the balcony, like, and more like sort of a VIP thing, and I watched the show from there together with only a few people when the sort of regular punters were down on the floor. So it's sort of like cool for them as well. But you know, some of the venues are obviously much more restricted, so it doesn't really work like that everywhere.
Okay. You've recently given 2 new members. How are they settling in, and how's it changed the band dynamics?
It's you know, come together really well. To be honest, the whole start of the year was quite, you know, chaotic for the band, because we had been working on the album for a long time, kind of having a pretty long break as well, not really doing a lot of shows, but spending time in the studio, and it was like we were gonna release a new album, and then just on the sort of eve of releasing it, all this sort of lineup stuff started happening. First, like Hanu, our bass player, said that he wouldn't really be up for all this touring in spring, and then later on during that tour, Netta, the accordion player, decided that she flies home mid-tour, and kind of left us as a 5-piece doing the rest of the tour together. And it was very tough kind of mentally, because it was a very sort of, we had all sort of waited for that moment and looked forward to get back on the road with a new album after 3 years, and kind of should have been stronger than ever, kind of, and then all of a sudden the sort of whole thing was kind of falling into pieces in our hands, and it felt that, you know, we can't really help it, because of course if someone wants to quit the band, you can't really force anyone to continue either, and it's not very fruitful for trying by force to keep a group together. So they wanted to, you know, continue doing their own things in life. So that's perfectly fine, but the timing was just very off, and that meant that the whole beginning of the year was, instead of being like, yes, we're back on the road and it's great, it was very sort of depressing actually, and tough. So then, well, we actually got this same group together for festivals, because that was more just fly out a weekend and come back home and do your stuff in the week. But then for autumn, during that festival season, we of course knew that wouldn't hold, that we need to sort of redo the whole thing for autumn. And it was very hard trying to come up with, you know, we had a solid lineup for a few years, and trying to come up with what would work dynamically, and what, you know, everyone had their kind of position and role in the band anyway. But then we got Robert and Yukkis, and even in the first rehearsals it started feeling like this could really, you know, actually turn out better than it was ever before. And now when getting on tour, we kind of realized that you know, that's what it takes. It's always hard, you know, to do those uncomfortable things, but when you get over it, you know, you actually notice that things, you know, turned out even better than what they were. And I think Yukkis and Robert are both great musicians, and getting keyboards back in the band, since we had keyboards last time, I don't know, back in 2006 maybe or something. So it's been quite some time off, and now having keyboards back in the band and having a very orchestrated album and putting that together has really brought a really kind of cool live feel to the whole thing, that we go on stage and actually perform music together as a 6-piece, and it made us sort of, we had to rethink everything, like some of the vocal ranges changed in the band, and when everyone sings we had to sort of redo all that and rearrange quite a bit. But on the other hand, we got even more singing power than we ever had, and you know, very skillful musicians, so it's sort of just set out very nicely, and not only on stage, also off stage. You know, you notice that the mood in the band has really not been that great for a longer time, and because, you know, it's not that there's ever been any major issues or anything. It's just like at some point, you know, everyone just started doing this more as a workplace really, and we obviously started out